Good evening, folks. This is Andy Pedraza with Special Effects Academy, and we're on the start of the week session of the Forex Trading Room for November 10th of 2019. As usual, we'll start with our normal agenda, taking a look at the results of the prior week, our currency strength meter for the last 7 days and the last month, our calendar of fundamental announcements, a look at the major pairs on the daily chart, any setups we see in progress as this week begins, and a few words in conclusion. Starting with the long-term ledger, not much change. Actually, no change at all. We still have the same 3 trades open, a short on the USD CAD, which came very close to hitting our trailing stop on Friday, but on the market open today, it has started moving further in our favor. So it looks like we're back in business for that one. And we have 2 pound shorts that are going pretty well. They're both carrying some nice open profit. So we'll see how those end up. But in essence, no trades open, no trades closed. And we are a little bit down by about 0.5 percentage point from where we were last week. That is simply the cost of keeping these trades open. So as long as these trades remain open, they will continue to carry some cost. In particular, you can see that the USD CAD short is carrying $22 of cost already, and the pound JPY $13. We do have positive swap on the pound dollar, but too small to figure $2.80. So those will continue moving against us for as long as these trades remain open. But of course, any profit we take will offset the cost of keeping the trades open. On the intermediate term ledger, we did have, I think, 1 trade close against us, or a couple of trades close against us this week. We still have quite a number of trades open. I think we had 9 open as the week ended. Yes, indeed, 9 of them. Some of them at profit, some of them are at a loss. Too soon to tell which way they will end up falling. So not a whole lot of change there either. And on the short term, we had a pretty good week. We all but hit 3% growth for the week. So we are recovering after a drawdown we had a few weeks back that pretty much set us back about, I'm going to say 10%, a little bit over 10%, perhaps 12% on this account, but it has been recovering nicely for the past couple of weeks. And there's a reason for that. The market has been very sideways, which is why the other accounts aren't showing any significant progress. But within the week, there have been a lot of nice swings that we have taken advantage on the short-term ledger. And you'll see that these things play out normally throughout a trading year, month, whatever you want to call, whatever time period you want to focus on. Sometimes you're going to have sideways markets where the intermediate and the long-term are going to be pretty quiet, and the short term is going to shine during these periods. And you'll also see the opposite. Sometimes there's a lot of swing trades, and sometimes the short term gets the short end of that stick. But anyway, that's why we have 3 different accounts with 3 different time frame parameters, so we can take advantage no matter what the markets are doing. The USD CAD short on the long term, as I mentioned, it almost hit the trailing stop, but is now moving away. And the pound continues to weaken slowly for yet another week. And we have also captured some nice open profit on that movement. Relative strength meter for last week and the last 30 days. So we can see that the big, bold coloring is on silver. Silver had a very, very sharp movement last week. We can see that it went to the tune of 7.25%. That's pretty much all due to silver. That was the big mover for the week, and gold to some degree, but not as heavily. The currency markets themselves, you can see the very light colors. They didn't move much from the beginning of the week to the end of the week. Pretty much ended sideways. For the month, we continue to see the Aussie and the pound being the big gainers, but of course, on the pound, that is shifting already, and we can see that the yen was pretty much the big loser for the month. So again, sideways market, not a whole lot to see here, except for the metals had the sharpest movement so far. Our calendar for the week, we have a pretty busy calendar, but not a whole lot that we're going to be trading live. So we do have the unemployment, the labor report coming out of the UK. That's going to be happening Tuesday early morning, 4:30 a.m. Eastern Time. We have the Reserve Bank of New Zealand's interest rate decision coming out that same Tuesday at 8 p.m. Eastern Time. So we'll be opening the trading room a little bit earlier than normal, probably 15 minutes earlier to trade that fundamental, and then we'll go into our regular session. And we do have the employment numbers coming out of Australia on Wednesday, also earlier than the 8 p.m. session. So we'll probably do an early session that day, open up the trading room around 7 p.m. instead of 8 p.m., do our regular evening trading and dovetail into the funding. And that's going to be it for the week from a fundamental perspective. Looking at our charts, oil still continues to be very flat, but trading at a higher range than the past month. So it's gone into the top of its sideways range and seems to be staying there. Not a whole lot of movement. Again, just trading sideways. Moving on to the euro dollar, this was a very good week for us in the euro dollar. We were trading it down, and indeed that's the direction it took. So we had a very sharp correction back down. It did break out of that trend line it had been following, bounced off the top level of resistance, and ended up the week 2 levels of support down. We'll have to see how this week begins. I am not too sure about the dollar. Obviously, this chart is showing dollar strength, euro weakness. I'm not sure how long that's going to continue, but until it does change, we are going to be shorting this pair. And indeed, we do have an open trade in the intermediate term account, trading the euro dollar down. Pound dollar also moved away from the top of its rising channel, so we do have a nice retracement all week for the pound dollar. And again, we fully took advantage of this one on the long term, and also on the short term account. We did open a trade the last 2 or 3 days of the week. We took advantage of this movement and cleared some nice profit. We'll have to see how the week starts, of course, and see if we can continue writing this down. So I'm very eager to see what the next, I'm going to say 12 to 24 hours give us. Also, we have to remember tomorrow is Veterans Day. So that is celebrated both in the US as well as in the UK, and indeed probably in most of Europe. So the markets may be a little bit quiet tomorrow, Monday. USD/JPY has broken resistance yet again. Seems to be following that trend line up. Not sure how far up it's going to go. We are seeing dollar strength, which means this one should continue going up until the dollar decides to either stall or reverse course. So another one we're going to be watching quite eagerly as the week begins. USD CAD still going through a retrace. It went all the way back up to resistance, but bounced. And indeed, this is what took us very close to our trailing stop on that long-term trade. We are, of course, trading this one down. We've had quite a bit of a retrace, but we're still in that trade. We're still profitable by more than 150 pips. So, and indeed, that's pretty much the level we would be getting out of if it does break that resistance. So we'll see if the week turns this around. It probably should. It's about time for it to turn around again, but we'll see what happens. USD Swiss also retracing towards the top on dollar strength. We have a losing trade open on the intermediate, but again, it is in a sideways channel, and our stop loss is should be outside of that. It is getting close though, so not too sure what's going to happen with the USD Swiss. We'll continue riding this one and see if it does give us a turnaround, but this may be one of those losing trades that we do have now and then. That is a normal part of trading. Aussie dollar broke the support level of the trend line, and indeed the horizontal support as well on Friday towards the end of the day. This is another one that we traded quite nicely on the short-term account, and we'll have to see if that trend line break holds as the week begins, and we can start trading this one down. So nothing set in stone yet, but it is starting to look good for a continued short. I think we have an open trade on this one on the intermediate term account, but In that one, I think we're trading it in the opposite direction. We were trading the resistance break and the follow the trend line. So again, we'll see what it ends up doing. Too soon to tell at this point. Kiwi dollar, and this one we are trading down on the intermediate term account quite nicely. So they're balancing out between the Aussie dollar and the Kiwi dollar, but we'll have to see as well how far this one goes. We'll continue to ride it, of course, so long as it continues moving in our direction. Indeed, if the Aussie and the Kiwi continue moving that way, the Aussie dollar trade is going to take us out of the loss, and then we'll make up for that with this open trade, and it will likely give us more profit than we are losing on the Aussie dollar trade. So part of trading also is to hedge your bets and make sure that you're not taken down by any one single trade. You have to have a little bit of a balance. That means you're going to win less when you win, because you have to cover some of the losses. But overall, long term, you're going to win far more by limiting your risk than by trying to go for those Hail Mary wins. Aussie Canadian still very flat. We are already trading it down, since we consider that level of resistance at the 91 to be pretty solid. So we did trade that bounce, and well, we'll see how far down it goes. I'm very hopeful it will go down to the bottommost level of support, and that will be our initial target for profit taking, and hey, perhaps it'll go even deeper. Euro Swiss, we're trading it down. I think we're either at a very small profit or at break even. It's come all the way back down to our entry, which is a good thing. We still needed to take out that trend line and continue heading down, but it's looking very good. That level of resistance at the 110.50 has been very, very solid for quite a long time. We can see it working out with candles bouncing off of it on both sides since back in June of this year. So far, it has been holding, and again, we're waiting to see if we get a trip towards the bottom before all is said and done. Euro pound, another flat pair. We're still waiting for the pound to wake up. It looks like the pound is weakening, though, and that simply is normal. I don't see a lot of good news coming out of the pound. They have the election in about a month's time. In fact, almost exactly a month's time. So we've got that to look forward to, and there doesn't seem to be a whole lot of upside. It's a damned if you do and a damned if you don't kind of scenario in the UK right now. No matter who wins the election, it's going to be a shambles. No matter what they decide to do about Brexit, it's going to be a shambles. So the good news is very limited. And the fact that the pound gained a lot of strength in the last month and a half is puzzling. It tells me that there's more sentiment than logic playing out, which again is normal in the market. It is sentiment driven. But logic will at some point reestablish itself, and I would be very surprised if the pound doesn't weaken significantly before the end of the year. So we'll see what happens. We'll be ready for it. We do have pending orders on this pair to take us in long if we do see a breakout towards the top. Euro JPY, yet another flat pair, but it does look like the euro is in a bit of a crossroads. So we see a lot of euro weakness on most of the pairs, and where you can't see the weakness directly, like in the euro dollar, you can see it very weak. Where you can't see it, it is flat. It's not going any further. It seems to be sold and waiting for something to kick it towards the bottom. So again, very hopeful on some of these. We do have open orders already on some of them, and in the rest we have pending orders. So just waiting for this to play out. Euro Canadian, another one where we're already in. We went in on that support break, and we're trying to ride it towards the bottom, looking good. It's been sideways for a couple 3 months at this point. So we're waiting for it to break out of that sideways pattern. And at the very least, even if it stays sideways, the bottom level of support is part of the sideways pattern. So I'm just looking forward to it dropping to the bottom. That will be our first profit-taking opportunity. And then hopefully, if all plays out, it'll go even deeper. Simply because the euro is weakening. There's no way around that. And the CAD is gaining strength. And this one has not shown that yet. It's just stayed sideways. So this one is waiting for something. And when it comes, it'll probably come with a vengeance. Pound JPY, we have an open trade at profit, actually a quite good level of profit. Not 100 pips, but getting closer to that on the long-term account. So we are carrying that trade, and look at all that room it has towards the bottom. If we do see pound weakness, that one trade is probably going to make a 10% gain on the long-term account all by itself. So looking forward to that. And of course, we need something to break in the UK, either news or the election or whatever to happen, so that sentiment does, I guess, bend to logic. Logic indicates that the pound is not going to get any stronger. The only possible thing it can do is either stay sideways or more likely get weaker. Aussie JPY is breaking out towards the top. I don't really trust that breakout just yet, but we'll see what happens. I think there is a better likelihood of a trip to the bottom than a trip to the top. But again, we'll have to wait and see what happens. We still have a pending order to take us in short if it breaks the level of support above where it is. So there's quite a bit of room. It has to go down to about 73.75, I think, for us to go in short, but when that happens, we will. Euro New Zealand, it took us out of yet another trade on Friday's retrace, so we did lose a few pips there. And well, we'll continue to look for that opportunity to go short. Sometimes trading is like fishing. You're going to set the bait, you're going to throw your line out, the bait gets stolen, you set it again, throw it out. Eventually, you're going to catch that big fish. And we've caught quite a number of big fish on this pair alone. So I'm willing to continue throwing bait at it for a while and see when we can catch that trip towards the bottom. It will be coming at some point. Pound Canadian, another sideways one, but with a downward bias. It already broke the trend line, tested it, and headed down. So whenever the CAD starts gaining strength to any significant degree, regardless of what the pound is doing, I'm going to start trading this guy towards the bottom. And if we're lucky and the pound weakens at the same time, it's just going to plummet. So this is one of those pairs that I am always keenly watching. Last one, pound Swiss, our most sideways of all the pound pairs. It really hasn't done any sort of a retrace in quite a while, really quite a while. So we are waiting for it to break down. We have pending orders on this one as well, but there is a lot of room between where it is right now and our trigger. So all we can do here is wait to see when we get the opportunity. And that's it for the charts, the setups we see in progress. Of course, as I mentioned, the pound continues to slowly weaken, but is still highly susceptible to the news cycle. So don't be surprised if some sort of apparent good news comes out and everybody goes crazy and the pound gets stronger, simply because it is sentiment driven. But longer term, I think there is no ifs, ands, or buts. It is going to get weaker before the end of the year. Again, my opinion. That's all it is, but it's a pretty solid opinion based on good fundamental analysis. The dollar pairs, the dollar continues shaky, but it had a very decent week. The dollar gained against pretty much every other currency. There is a higher likelihood of sideways action, however, and I really don't see, barring any significant news, that the dollar is going to gain any major strength. But again, we'll see. We'll continue to trade it as safely as we can and take as much profit as we can along the way. The CAD retrace again after a brief flirtation at the beginning of the week to move into strength, but it is still better now than it was a few weeks ago. So we're still in that bearish movement of the Canadian dollar. It did retrace. What are you going to do? But we're still very bearish on the CAD pairs, and by that I mean I'm very bullish on the Canadian dollar itself. Most of the CAD pairs, when they go down, that means Canadian strength. Euro CAD, dollar CAD, pound CAD, all of these are. I think the only one that's opposite is the CAD JPY. So when the CAD gets stronger, the CAD JPY goes up. All the others, CAD gets stronger, they go down. Japanese pairs, they gave up more ground again last week for no discernible reason. So this is something a little bit puzzling. I don't know why the yen is weakening, which probably means I'm missing something. But sentiment seems to be bearish for the pound. It is giving up ground, and of course we'll see how we can trade that to our advantage. And last but not least, the euro. The euro continues to weaken, as I mentioned, across most of its pairs. And we'll have to see what this week brings us, which way we're going to be wanting to trade it, both long-term and shorter term. So again, start of the week, got to give the week some time to start. And tomorrow being a holiday in most of the Western world, we're going to have to be very careful that we don't get caught in the low volume movements that may happen in the next 24 hours, simply because most of the people are taking the day off as a holiday. So volatility might be higher than normal, simply on very slim volume. So the week might not start until Tuesday, I guess is what I'm trying to say. And that's going to be it for me. My parting words are about baskets and eggs here. The last month was brutal for me. This has nothing to do with trading. Simply, I funnel my profits from trading into real estate, into rental properties that I keep a pretty good inventory of. And there was an auction last week on Friday for one of the counties where I operate. And before that auction, I had to personally visit more than 100 properties to review each and every one, figure out which ones I wanted to bid on. Luckily, these auctions only happen a couple, 3 times a year in my area. But I don't believe in having all my eggs in the same basket. So trading has been very profitable for me for more than 10 years now. I've been living off my trading. Forget about the real estate. Before I had real estate, I was living off my trading quite nicely. But if something were to happen to trading where I couldn't trade for whatever reason, I don't know, President Trump decided Forex trading was illegal or whatever, or I decided to move to Thailand where it is illegal, then, I can't rely on any one thing, and nobody should be relying on any one thing for their income, because when you rely on one thing, that thing can go away. So my diversification is into real estate because it has nothing to do with the financial markets. So I get my rentals from my properties, and that gives me quite a nice chunk of income. Sometimes I get more money from the rentals than I get from trading. Sometimes it's the opposite. So I'm balanced. And in the last few weeks, even with trading, and I mentioned this at the top of the call, intermediate and long-term trading have been sluggish, but the short-term is now like 3 weeks, I think, in a row, we've been making some good profit there. A month or so back, it was the other way around. The short-term was not doing well. Intermediate and long-term were booming. So part of your personal risk is going to be not to depend on any one source of income. And if you depend on one source of income, even there, you need to diversify. Short-term, intermediate, long-term are pretty good examples in trading. And I realize that this may not be something you can do right now. If you don't have the funds for it, obviously you can't spread your eggs around, but you don't need to worry about that. I didn't get to where I am in 1 year or even in 5 years. It's a process. What I'm telling you right now is you need to make it part of your overall plan. You need to aim for a point in your life when you have those eggs spread around in multiple baskets. And if you had I don't care if it's a bad trading year, forget about a month, you don't care, because trading will only be one of your eggs, and all your other eggs are hatching quite nicely, and vice versa. So those are my parting words for now. Just a little bit diversification is going to be your friend, is my the moral of the story. That's going to be it for me this week. Do I have any comments or questions from anyone? Okay, then thank you very much. I will be sending an update very shortly, and I will be back tomorrow, 8 p.m. for our first trading session of the week. Have a good one, guys.